So let's say you found the skeleton. How would you tell it to die? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, welcome to Kent with Bent 75, Silence of the Kents. I gotta say, actually, for like how much I like the thumbnail versus how little effort it took, that might be my best thumbnail. It's not the best thumbnail overall to look at, but like it took so little effort, and I think it came out great. But anyway, before we actually get into it, I have a quick announcement to make, which is that I this morning got a message from Cindy Lincoln, and I'm gonna read some of it, not all of it, because this is it's a private conversation here, but so let's see. I guess this was actually put out publicly on her GoFundMe, so then I'll be okay with reading more of it. Good news, GoFundMe donors and friends. Today, those funds vindicated me on one of my 3 fronts in the war against Kent Hovind's mafia bullying tactics. Today, Steve Lynn was found, well, she says guilty, but I think she means liable, of $10,000 in damages, theft, and vandalism of my rental property with Kent Hovind's full knowledge and consent and intent to hurt me. So basically, she also says that the legal fees for this case were about $900, which is the same amount that she got from the GoFundMe, which is nice because it means that she didn't have to go out of pocket on that. She says she feels it's unlikely that Steve will appeal the verdict because his lawyer withdrew from the case. Where have we heard that before? Yikes. So let's see. Steve, it turns out, also has another failure to appear outstanding from Missouri. Coincidentally, just before arriving at Dinosaur Adventureland in 2016. So he has a history of just not appearing before the court. And I know
a good
that
Christian man.
Yeah, I know that was actually a problem that Cindy was putting up with. So right now, she has that $10,000 judgment, and from my understanding, a large portion of that is going to be going to fund her a lawsuit against Kent Hovind, who, as we all know, took approximately $130,000 from her. She's not expecting to recover all that because I don't think she has receipts for all of that. But so I just want to say, Cindy, if you're watching, congratulations. I suspect you're not. But I did also say congratulations in our text messages, and I'm sure I'll call her here in the next few days to say congratulations. Because, we support Cindy Lincoln here on this channel. We don't agree with all of her stances on science. In fact, almost none of them. But you know what? I don't care. Because there's something much more important than agreeing on science, and that's supporting the victims of domestic abuse. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't care what you think about how old the Earth is. If you're a domestic abuse victim, I'm with you on that front. We can disagree about other stuff. Also, Valkyrie Vision for $4.99 US sends a super sticker with a heart eye lemon. Thank you very much, Valkyrie Vision. It's adorable. Let's see. I think that's the only big announcement that I wanted to make at the start of this was that, yeah, Cindy Lincoln has won a case against Steve Lynn, Kent's tech guy, alleged drug dealer, alleged maybe secret lover, who knows. But yeah, so we're here to continue with Kent Hovind's CSE 201 Class 5, which was allegedly offered for college credit, which is just horrifying. But yeah.
Easiest college class I've ever taken.
My goodness. Yeah. So let's see. We are talking about astronomy, and I think Kent Hovind was just about to say that, or I think he had just said something like the orbit of the Earth is minuscule compared to the size of the universe, which, yes, and therefore he's skeptical about things like stellar parallax being measurable, which is like, dude, it's been like a century since we've been measuring stellar parallax. It's time to stop being skeptical about that one. But whatever. Kent's a moron. He's like, you think you can measure angles that small? And the answer is yes, we demonstrably can.
He's right to the point where parallax is only useful to some degree for some circumstances, but he's therefore assumes it's always a guess or something like that. And it's like, no, it's actually very useful in these circumstances. The way Kent act, he might not admit that, but the way he acts about it,
yeah,
I don't think he understands it as well as he thinks he does.
Well, remember,
and I don't think he understands why
more recently
when it does and it doesn't work when it doesn't work.
More recently, Kent went full flurf in his arguments about various relative motions, making it impossible to do accurate parallax. And that was just like 2 years ago. He went full flurf on that one.
Well,
So
he's not known for. I believe the last time I saw Kent in an astronomy debate, he was talking about a cashmere sweater instead of the Casimir effect because
oof.
he didn't know what he had heard.
Yes.
And if you don't know, you don't know, right? A lot of people would never know what the Casimir effect is, but if you're debating in astronomy, you might want to have heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you're not ready to debate.
Hawk Skull for £2 says Cindy is our favorite YEC. Also, AIG equals bag of Dax. Nice. Take a drink. Which reminds me, it's time to go over the quick drinking rules. Okay, so this is a bit of a drinking game. Someone pointed out to me that right around Kent with Bet 15 is where the drinking game started to evolve.
Okay.
But anyway, so we're going to take a drink. First of all, for super chats like that, if you can get across the idea that AIG are a bunch of dicks, then I'll take a drink for that. In part because currently they have an outstanding copyright claim on one of my videos. Right now, there is a video that I can't monetize because it's currently claimed by AIG, which means that essentially I could have published it and started making money on it. Instead, I can't. So
What copyright did you violate?
it's the Andrew Stelling speech. Their copyright on that. Which, I mean, they do have a copyright on that, right?
Right, but
But
did
it's
you
fair
not
use.
use it under fair use?
Oh yeah, it's absolutely fair use.
Yeah.
So that's currently going. They've got about 25 more days to respond. And yeah, if they uphold it, I don't know. I'll decide whether or not I want to make it harder for their robot to catch it, or if I want to actually go ahead and challenge it. It might be easier to just re-upload. I don't know. But anyway, so we take a drink whenever someone super chats to the effect that AIG are a bunch of dicks, but you have to be careful because YouTube doesn't like the word dicks, so you gotta switch it up a little bit. Anyway, we also take a drink whenever Kent Hovind is just so stupid we have to, which is a lot. Or if he gets something right that he's not just quoting from someone else, right? It can't just be a direct quote. It has to be his own thoughts. And if they're factually accurate, we take a drink. We're sometimes generous about that so that we get at least one in a week, but, you know. We'll also take a drink whenever Kent Hovind tells a story that didn't happen, or he tells a joke that doesn't land, or he just goes and starts randomly for no reason talking about, say, the National Socialist German Workers' Party or various members of it.
Which I expect any minute.
Oh, yeah. We'll take drinks if we have a successful prediction. Usually that'll be like, hey, if he says this, I'm going to take a drink. And there is a Godzilla, so take a drink for Godzilla.
That's pretty loud for me, by the way.
Okay, I will turn that down. It's
I
hard
don't know
for me
how
to
it is for the
gauge.
chat. Yeah, it's really hard to and we forgot to test it ahead of time.
Whoops.
Because I don't. We used to test that all the time, and we haven't tested that in a long time.
Well, we're only doing these now about once a month because I've got a whole bunch of other shows. Because, quite frankly, we all need a break from Kent Hovind. So anyway, I think that basically covers it. I'm not sure if there's any others.
Didn't pay attention when you were saying all the rules, so I don't know if you missed any.
Well, if there's another one, I'll probably recognize it when it happens.
Yeah. So.
Okay. So here we go. Let's get into Kent Hovind talking about astronomy, something he knows oh so much about.
From our vantage point, it appears that most of the stars are receding away from us.
Galaxies? But you know what? I'm going to call it okay because galaxies are at least in part made of stars, and most of the stars are in other galaxies. So in a roundabout way, that's not wrong. So I'll take a drink.
It's not wrong, but I do think he misunderstands.
Oh yeah, I don't think he knows the difference
in this case.
Yeah, I don't think he knows the difference between a star and a galaxy.
Well, I think he thinks. I think Kent thinks that like the outer edges of the Milky Way are receding from us. That's what I think he.
Yeah, he probably does think that.
Because he doesn't understand.
Yeah. Goop23 says, one joke that didn't land, two story that didn't happen. I thought we covered those. Well, if we didn't, then yes, those are two drink triggers.
Bible, God said in Genesis chapter 1 that he created the earth first. And then later he made the stars. In verse 14,
I thought he
made
created the heavens and then the earth. So the earth was second.
Well, so in Genesis 1:1, it says that God created the heavens and the earth. But then later on like day 4, I think it says that he made the stars also.
Okay.
So I guess the heavens existed before the stars.
Aren't the heavens just supposed to be the sky anyway?
Basically.
So first there was sky, but then there was earth, but then there were also stars.
I guess so, yeah.
All right, that's from a scientific book called the Bible, according to Uncle Kent.
Yes.
Got it.
Stars also. Well, if he made the sun first and the stars later, and then 17 times in the Bible it says he stretched out the heavens.
All right,
Oh,
first
that's 17 times?
I have
it
no
says
idea.
that,
I know
but-
I have no idea how many times it says it. It doesn't matter much to me the exact number. I'm not going to contest it because I don't want to go count. But first, we have a $10 super chat from Caleb Sherstad who says, "When halfway through the journey of our life, I found that I was in a gloomy wood because the path which led aright was lost, and how hard it is to say just what this bag of silent flutes this AIG was." We're going to take a drink. Wait, is that the path less taken? I feel like that's the path less taken, because now I feel like if I don't get the literary references, like it just reflects poorly on my education. So if that's the path less taken, let me know, and if it's not, I mean, let me know what it is, because I don't know all of the books. Spoiler alert, there are books I haven't read. But yeah. Where were we?
I don't know. This random search says only 8 results, but I would have guessed 3. So it doesn't. We were talking about how it doesn't matter how many times the Bible says "stretched out the heavens." Not
Oh,
really.
right, stretch out the heavens. Okay, so the thing is, it specifically says that God stretched out the heavens like a tent, which ties into the whole like firmament, which is an actual firm dome. So
Is that why they call it firmament?
yes, that's exactly what. It's the Divine
Wow.
Comedy. All right, look, it's been a while since I read the Divine Comedy, and also once I got to the Paradiso, I put it down because I was just kind of bored because it was like weird spheres and collections of angels singing, which is way less fun than like people sticking halfway through a frozen swamp while Satan gnaws on their ankles. That's a whole lot better. Anyway,
Interesting.
so yeah, the whole when you read the God stretched out the heavens, it's very hard to get from that unless you're reading into the text the idea that the universe is expanding. For one thing, it doesn't say he is stretching out the heavens. It says he stretched out the heavens. So it should be done. Oh, by the way, road less taken.
I mean, yeah. If you're gonna take it literally to the point where you can't say heaven, you have to say heavens, or the other way around. I don't remember. Like, if that matters to that degree, then yeah.
Yeah, if you want to take...
Stretched means stretched. How dare you infer otherwise?
Right.
Good
So
sir.
basically, according to Kent Hovind's hermeneutic generally, where thanks, motorcycle, for being so loud it comes through the microphone. If I could, I would block off the road and make it illegal to have motorcycles that loud.
I don't
But
care.
I care.
I don't know if I figured chat knows that motorcycles exist. So.
Yeah, but I feel like I don't want them on my... Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's
if you want to take these passages as literally as Kent wants to take the rest of Genesis, sorry Kent, but that just means the Earth is flat, and you should probably be a flat earther. Oh, it's road not taken. I forgot the I added a the on road not taken the poem. Anyway, I got that one wrong.
Must have been important for him to say that.
I didn't
17
take it
times. He
at
says he stretched out the heavens. Everybody's worried, how did the light get from the star to here? They're worried about the wrong problem. How did the star get from here to there?
Those aren't separate problems. What?
I think we know how the light got from there to here.
It traveled.
It traveled.
Like light always does.
And then I don't think how the star got from here to there makes any sense. I don't think the star was ever here.
Yeah, there's that too.
That's not how that works. That's not how the Big Bang works.
That's not how anything works. I would love for someday Kent Hovind to actually sit down and give his idea of what the Big Bang entails. Like,
I think that he thinks he has when he talks about the 6 stages of evolution. Honestly, I think that he thinks he's explaining it in perfect detail. Like,
maybe he does. All right, let's see where we are.
Okay. If you made them all from here and stretched them out, then we would see a red shift. Everywhere we look, no matter which direction, we would see stars receding, because this is where everything originated.
No, not really.
it also doesn't understand what it would look like from, a million light years away. Like, oh yeah, that would also appear to be the center of the universe. because
Right.
that's how expansion works. It expands in all space except for not inside galaxies, and that part confuses me. But I know gravity is strong enough inside galaxies to
Well, so this
keep
gets
the
to his
universe from expanding
confusion
so
about
far.
whether the stars or the galaxies are receding, right? So one of the things is Kent seems to think that like every star we see, or at least the vast majority of them, should be
All stars
right.
are redshifted. Did he not say that?
Yeah, which no, they're not.
Is the sun
All but the
redshifted?
closest of galaxies are redshifted. Andromeda's blue shifted. I think there's a few others that are blue shifted. I don't remember.
I don't know if there's anything close to the size of the Milky Way or Andromeda that's blue shifted. Just the smaller, like Magellanic Clouds, maybe. But as far as that size of galaxy, I think all of the others are redshifted.
Yeah. So the thing is that we don't expect the stars in the Milky Way to all be redshifted. We expect like about half of them to be redshifted, about half of them to be blue shifted, because the distance on average between the stars and the Milky Way isn't actually increasing. The Milky Way itself isn't expanding. It's staying about the same size as the stars orbit its center. So I'm just going to take a drink for Kent thinking that the Milky Way must be expanding and that where Earth is where the Big Bang happened, as if it didn't happen everywhere at once.
It happened everywhere at once. So he's right that it happened here, but also wrong because it happened where that star is too, and where the other star is also, and everywhere.
You can't find a place and say that this is the place the Big Bang happened, because it's equally true that it happened equally everywhere else. So anyway, here we go.
We are the center of the universe.
Just drink.
Now, I don't think we want to be the center of the solar system.
What does that mean?
Spinning around us, though you can read the geocentric theory stuff if you like. Anyway, that's
Wait, so you're going to actually take seriously?
If you want, you read that geocentric stuff, because why not believe in something else equally stupid?
I don't know that it's worth drinking for, but it blows me away that Kent Hovind's like, geocentrism, that could be. I don't buy it, but maybe. Like,
he didn't even say he doesn't buy it.
Yeah.
He almost acts like he's considering it.
I honestly think that at this point, Kent Hovind could have been turned into a geocentrist if he had a few more geocentrist friends.
Listen, if you don't know anything about the shape of it's not even that. If you don't know anything about what's orbiting in the solar system and you want to look at the possibilities and consider them, that's a legitimate reason to look up geocentrism. That doesn't mean you're just like, all right, I'm a geocentrist now.
KH says, how hard would it be to convince Hovind in a debate that the Big Bang Theory is based off of green shift? That would be amusing. I don't know if you could, though, because he's been talking about redshift for, decades. So that's one of the things
he's heard the term enough, even though he doesn't understand it, he's heard the term enough that it'd be difficult to convince him that there's a green shift.
I think what would end up happening...
It may be possible, but I wouldn't be able to do it.
I think what would end up happening is like when he, the first time he heard about ERVs, when he was debating conspiracy cats, and he would just like, no, we're not going to talk about that. Okay. So here we go.
It's just a couple examples. The big rocks fall faster, the heliocentric theory. There are thousands of theories through science that have been taught for years.
It says the heliocentric theory as if our conception of the solar system isn't still heliocentric. Maybe he meant geocentric, but okay, Kent.
They're wrong. By the way, the idea that a big rock falls faster than a small rock was taught for 2,000 years before somebody dared to question it. I always encourage students, question what you're being taught. Question what I teach. Question. You question the Bible. It'll stand up.
Okay, but then when you find the answer, it's okay to acknowledge that it's the correct answer. And if you find an answer that's not correct, it's okay to challenge yourself.
Right.
Just reason together, the Lord says. Nothing wrong with questioning the Bible. I don't believe that. Okay, well, test it out. Check it out. Many people have become Christians by, thinking they're going to prove the Bible wrong. And they go off on this lifelong quest. I'm going to prove that book wrong. And years later, after they try, they end up getting converted. Someone once said a very sharp statement. He said,
okay, but I also know a lot of people who then question the Bible, determined that it wasn't what they were going to follow because they didn't think it was right, and then left Christianity. So I'm not going to say that there aren't people who investigate the Bible and end up converting. I'm just going to say that, for this to be a good argument, it would have to be conclusively heavily weighted in one direction versus the other, right? And it's just not. It's really not. So you can't just say like investigating the Bible is going to lead you to Christianity, because it manifestly will not in some like significant majority of cases. I don't even know if it is a majority of cases. I would suspect it's probably not. Most people probably just stick with whatever religion they started with, even after investigating the Bible. But yeah.
The Bible is the anvil that has worn out many hammers. A lot of people have beat on that book trying to get it to, it just doesn't move. Nobody's found anything wrong with it.
I'm gonna drink because I have no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah, it's, if you want to say...
And I'm gonna write that down for me
Mm.
as a rule, a drinking rule. When I have no idea what he's talking about, I'm gonna drink.
And Vandalian 1998, who's been a member for 17 months at the amnio level, thank you very much, Vandalian 1998, says, and creationism was taught for hundreds of years to and proven wrong. So, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Which, by the way...
There's a lot of things that have been taught that were proven wrong eventually. And you know what helped prove them wrong? Finding it hidden on a page in the Bible that no one read before. Just kidding, it was science.
Yeah. By the way, Vandalian 1998 has been a member for 17 months. He's one of my longest standing members, and in not too long, in about, I think, 7 months, so this year, if some of my oldest members stay members, we're going to get to see the final member badge that I've created. You have to be there for 2 whole years to get it, but I think it's worth it, because it's a pretty good member badge, if I do say so myself. Anyway, here we go.
I've had people say, well, I can't find anything wrong with it, but I just don't like it. Oh, well, okay, well, now you're being honest, right?
I don't think that ever happened. I'm taking a drink.
Yeah.
Now we know. I don't like it either. Some things in that book I don't like. It cuts down, it cramps my style. It says don't do this, don't do that, don't do that.
Yeah, like don't abuse people, don't
throw your wife to the ground.
Pay your taxes, things like that.
Does it? Yeah, it does say to pay your taxes.
Listen, my interpretation of given to Caesar what is Caesar's after Caesar's face is on the coin means if you have to pay your taxes, just do it. Focus on God for God things and don't worry about what the world does. That's how I interpret that. I know some people interpret it means don't pay your taxes. I don't understand how. What do I know? I'm just a bent.
Because American money doesn't literally have Caesar's face on it.
I guess if you think that's what Jesus meant, maybe you're right, but I feel like you're missing the point.
Maybe a little bit.
It doesn't matter, dude.
All right, here we go.
My flesh wants to do that, but here I got a book that says I can't do that, and so if I was going to invent a book, I wouldn't invent one like that. That's the last thing I'd invent. Okay.
Oh, you would just misinterpret it on purpose.
So Kent is basically just admitting here that he's a horrible, horrible person by his own standard. And you know what, Kent? Okay, that's fair. Fair enough.
You got something right. I'll drink to that.
Yeah, there you go.
In 1799, George Washington got the flu out riding his horse, according to the best knowledge I have. His doctors were called in, and they...
From his horse. His horse had the flu, apparently.
I mean, maybe, but he didn't get the flu because he was riding a horse. He caught it from a flu virus.
Well, unless it was directly the horse that gave it to him. Then you might be able to say maybe.
Okay, so he was infected with a horse somehow. I don't understand how that's supposed to work.
It's like the bird flu. Birds do carry it. Maybe there's a horse flu. We just don't know about it yet.
Yeah, but that virus still is what causes it.
Yeah, well, yeah, directly, yeah.
The custom back then was to bleed someone, either to cut their wrist and take off blood, or to put leeches on them. But the idea was to get rid of the blood because they didn't have microscopes capable of seeing the capillaries. All they knew was the heart produced the blood and pumped it out to the body, and the body absorbed it. That's what they thought. The body is constantly absorbing this blood that's going out.
Such a weird way to say what he said, dude.
Yeah.
Also, do you think people are putting microscopes on like skin to check for capillaries?
I don't know.
That's not how that works.
But also the fact is that like blood does actually exit blood vessels after capillaries and go into the tissue. So it's not entirely wrong that some of your tissues are absorbing blood directly. I mean, they are. It's just that they're being very carefully directed by the capillaries. So capillaries or not, it's not strictly wrong to say that your body tissues are absorbing blood. They are. So I don't know what Kent Hovind's point is. I
mean, you could see capillaries on histology slides, but that's very thinly cut because if you don't know, if you want to look at human tissue under a microscope, you have to shine light through it, and in order for that to work, it has to be cut pretty thin.
Yeah.
You're
Well,
basically looking at one layer of cells and maybe a couple layers of cells.
well, the only thing that I'm saying is I do think they probably couldn't have found capillaries at that point, so they probably didn't know about them. He's probably right about
Oh, he's
that.
right. Yeah, he's right about that. Yeah.
But I think we're going to get like a weird, incorrect version of the Doctrine of Humors. And I'm curious to see how Kent screws up the Doctrine of Humors. Because not only can Kent Hovind not get current science right, he generally can't get the history of science right either.
Sick, you have bad blood, take out some.
Nope. Okay, we're going to take a drink. Okay.
Kill my drink already.
The Doctrine of Humors was not that you have bad blood sometimes. So there were a series of bodily fluids that were considered the humors. There was blood, there was phlegm, and then two different bodily fluids that were both called bile. There was black bile and yellow bile. Anyway, the idea of the humors was that if you had too much of one humor or not enough of the other, that could cause a disease. Certain diseases were thought to be caused by an excess of blood, which means in order to cure it, you should remove the blood. It's not that the blood is bad, it's perfectly normal blood. You just have too much of it. You're just stuffed with blood, I guess. Same thing with bile, right? If you have certain stomach diseases, they might think that, well, maybe you have an excess of bile, so if you throw up a bunch and get rid of some bile, maybe you'll get better. Same thing with phlegm. Like maybe you have a respiratory infection, you're coughing up a whole lot of phlegm. Well, maybe you've got too much of it. Get it out. Turns out that getting rid of the blood is one of the more dangerous options here, because chances are you're not going to throw up enough bile to be life-threatening, but you can absolutely be blood enough to be life-threatening. So,
turns out, yes, that's true.
Yeah, and the thing is that, okay, well, why were they bleeding people and thinking that this was going to be okay? Well, if you think you have too much blood, then chances are you don't think you're going to bleed someone so much that they don't have enough anymore. Because if they're still sick, they still have too much. This is a wrong idea. YouTube, I'm not advocating for the Doctrine of Humors, but you have to understand what they thought was going on in order to understand why things like this were happening. So it was not that, like, part of your blood was bad. It was literally just, you got too much was the idea. It's not true, but that was the idea. And Kent Hovind can't get the Doctrine of Humors right, which is unsurprising.
Your blood, take out all your blood if you have to, and you'll get better.
No! Taking another drink. No one ever thought you should take out all the blood. Because that would also, according to the Doctrine of Humors, lead to disease, because there could be too little. That's why there were remedies from like the Middle Ages well into the modern period for foods that promoted the production of blood, because some diseases were thought to be caused by having too little. And they thought that, like, hey, maybe if you have this cabbage and onions, you'll make more blood, and that'll fix the problem. So we'll keep going with Kent Hovind butchering the history of science.
Of course, they lost a lot of patients back in those days, but
That's true. I'll take a drink.
by the way, there is some truth to the bloodletting, because especially men, they tend to get an iron overload. You can go to BillSardi.com and read his article.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm taking a big drink. First of all, Bill Sardi is a crazy hack. He's a fraudster. He sells basic vitamins, which, by the way, unless you have a vitamin deficiency, there's very little point in taking a multivitamin. But he sells them through an MLM company, a pyramid scheme in all but name. $2 from Carrie Bronson says, may the void consume the stress built up here. My goodness.
Absolutely
Seriously.
do not take medical advice from Kent Hovind.
No. Or his friend Bill Sardi, who, like I said, runs a scam vitamin company and is an anti-vaxxer and thinks that you should eat cyanide to help prevent and or treat cancer.
Unless he said something you happen to know is true.
Even then, ask a doctor.
But if you can't ask a doctor because it's an emergency or something, don't put yourself in that situation.
Look, the closest thing to medical advice I would take from Kent or Bill Sardi is, like, don't step into traffic. Like, I don't know if that counts as medical, but yeah, it is unhealthy to do that, so okay. Like, oh my goodness, Bill Sardi. Yeah, by the way, Kent sells Bill Sardi's MLM vitamins at a discount because he's in bed with Bill Sardi's multi-level marketing, which I don't talk much about multi-level marketing, but basically it's like, you know, Mary Kay or Avon or Bill Sardi's things where you sign up new people to sell, and now they're in your, quote, downline, and you get a cut of what they make, and then the people above you get a cut of what you make from what they make, and so only the people at the top ever make much money. The average MLM has less than a 99% chance of making money for any person who buys into it. And here's my pro tip for the day. If you have a new job, but the job requires you to pay them money to get the job, that's a scam, not a job. You're not going to be your own boss. You're just going to be in debt to the company that you think is quote-unquote hiring you as an independent sales consultant. Don't do it. MLMs are a scam. Bill Sardi's company is an MLM. Bill Sardi is a scammer. Come at me, Bill.
SARDI, about men and iron overload. You don't want to take vitamins with iron after you're about, I think he says about 16. Don't take any iron.
I know men with iron deficiencies. This is insane. And I've never met anyone with an iron abundance. Too much iron. What is that going to do? Transport your oxygen too efficiently?
It helped Magneto that one time in that movie. Didn't it?
It did.
You can't discount that. That's a thing.
That's why it's great. Maybe Magneto should take extra iron supplements so he can use his blood. He's blood bending now.
You do need the correct amount of iron. So if you don't have that, your doctor should be able to test for that and then treat that. So once again, trust the doctor for that. It's not a hard thing for doctors and phlebotomists, right, to draw blood and test for iron.
Brian
levels.
Stevens says, I once, quote, interviewed for a job where the interview was them driving us around helping them sell AT&T phone services to companies. A few people ran us off. Yeah, that was probably a scam.
What?
Get enough. It causes problems. When you're growing and developing, yes, but after that, you don't want iron in your vitamins. Who cares? But read Bill Sardi's article about that.
Okay, I care.
Don't read Bill Sardi.
You need iron to live.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
And chances are you're not accumulating too much.
Myoglobin. Come on.
Yeah.
If you don't know, it's okay. You don't have to know. You need iron. Talk to your doctor. Say, doctor, should I get rid of all iron? Let's see what the doctor says.
Yeah, he'll say no.
And you know what? Don't listen to me. Your doctor is telling you the truth. They'll tell you the truth.
Look, I'll tell you what. If your doctor tells
don't take
you
my advice,
that you have
don't take Ken's advice. Take
too
your
much
doctor's
iron,
medical advice.
If your doctor tells you you have too much iron in your blood, I want you to let me know because that would be interesting.
But George, there is some good to bloodletting because you do get rid of iron when you bleed.
But Kent, my goodness.
It's pretty easy to read on the dangers of bloodletting on like a Wikipedia and why.
Look, problems with micronutrient imbalances, which is what he's essentially talking about, should not be solved by bloodletting. They're supposed to be solved by consultation with your doctor and changes to your diet. If for some reason you did have too much iron, the solution would be to eat fewer foods that are high in iron. Not to just bleed out. This is the thing. Like, some people can die following Kent Hovind's advice, right? When people are like, "Oh, what do you care about Kent Hovind? Like, who cares if the Earth? Like, no one's gonna get hurt if the Earth is, if they think the Earth is 6,000 years old." Okay, but they might get hurt if they think they have too much iron in their body, so they bleed themselves into the sink while chugging cyanide.
Yeah. Well, what if they find a different source of way more cyanide than you're gonna get from an apricot seed, and they try that?
Yeah.
And then you don't know if that's happened.
Yep. There could be people who have already died from Kent Hovind's advice, and we just wouldn't know.
I was chewing on apricot pits, not seeds, with my roommate back in the day because of Kent Hovind. Like, he wanted to buy. I'm like, dude, I'll eat an apricot and chew on the seed if it helps me not die of cancer or something like that. What do I care? I didn't know anything about science at the time. It's before I went to college.
Yeah.
How do you pronounce it?
That's
before I was a Navy nuke, even. So
there you go.
Just a dumb, ignorant kid, 20-year-old or whatever, who's believing things like Kent Hovind says, right? Like, we're out there, we exist, we could have died from that,
Oh, so there is a real problem, hemochromatosis, which does sometimes require bloodletting. Again, not by yourself, with a doctor in a hospital. But it is rare, and so, yeah, there you go.
What? So, like I said, don't take my advice, take your doctor's advice.
Take your doctor's. Yeah.
Get rid of some of the iron in your body, but in the clotting mechanism.
No, iron is not the cause of your clotting mechanism. It's a protein cascade, but whatever.
George Washington, there's a lot of controversy about what really happened because the doctors that attended him as he died from bleeding, they bled him twice, and the first time they bled him, he said, "Well, he got worse. Let's bleed him again." Oh, he died. Oh, wow, well. And of course, I'm sure they stood at the casket and said, "Well, we did the best we could do." He was standing at death's door, and we pulled him through. Yeah, you pushed him through, you idiot. But
that was a joke that didn't land. You pushed him through, you idiot.
They thought, if you take.
I mean, they did the best medicine they could at the time, and
Yeah.
what would have happened if they hadn't done it? Was the person dying of something?
I mean, George Washington might have
Maybe.
died of the flu. People die of the flu. He was old. So maybe they hastened along his demise, but he would have died
That's
anyway.
true. I forgot he was actually mentioning a specific story.
Yeah.
Better. Now, as I said, there's some controversy because the doctors were Masonic Lodge members. George Washington had been,
Obviously.
I guess, put into the Masonic Lodge,
Of course
not
he
really
did.
knowing what it was. And the Masons always use pictures of George Washington laying the cornerstone for Washington, D.C. with his Masonic
Obviously.
apron on, and got all the symbols on there. And they
I neither know nor care. Look,
Yeah, me neither. And the Illuminati hasn't convinced me to be quiet about it, I promise.
the Masonic lodges are basically just drinking clubs that collect money for charity. That's mostly what they do.
said George Washington was a Mason. Well, that's true. He was a Mason for a while before he really realized what this organization was, and then he got out.
I'm gonna need one of those. What do you call them?
Citation needed?
Yeah, I think it's a citation. Why isn't my video working though? Hey, video, do the thing.
I see. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. My citation needed video is broken, and I hate it. Oh well.
Saw it now.
And there are many people who think that the Mason doctors, actually bled him too much on purpose to kill him.
I'm just gonna take a drink for crazy. George Washington was murdered by his
Honestly,
doctor's
dude,
conspiracies.
I remember being like 10 and like playing make believe and making stories up like this, like with my brother and stuff like that.
Oh, hey, it worked this time.
Just making up stories, and it sounds just like what I'm hearing from Ken. It's just, what are you talking about, man?
Yeah, it's a Masonic conspiracy to kill George Washington for, like, why would you even want to? The guy retired
I don't
from the
know
presidency.
why.
He was just a farmer at this point. Like, what people asked him for advice, but like he didn't have any power really. I don't know. It's just weird.
I don't know why Kent doesn't mention the movie Conspiracy Theory more often than he mentions The Green Mile.
I think Kent Hovind at this point probably thinks that National Treasure, those movies are like documentaries based on a true story.
I love that movie. I need to watch National Treasure
Look,
again.
National
It's
Treasure
been
is
a
a fun
while.
movie, and it's like one of my favorite like Nick Cage roles, but like it's not a true
I've
story.
become more of a fan of Nick Cage since the last time I saw the National Treasure movies. So
Yeah.
I need to rewatch.
By the way, one of my favorite recent Nick Cage movies, Colorado Space. Check that one out. It's based on an H.P. Lovecraft short story. Oh, although if you aren't okay with body horror, don't check it out, because there's a fair bit of body horror. And by a fair bit, that's putting it very mildly. It might as well be a Cronenberg movie.
How do you prove that now? I don't know.
How do you
but that's
explain
just-
for the audience what you mean by that?
Oh,
It's rated R?
well, it is rated R. and
Gory, something like that?
It's gory, and there's body horror. If you don't know what body horror is, you're probably not ready for a lot of body horror.
I'm not ready for it then.
There you go.
So,
Something to consider. If you find any evidence one way or the other, let me know. But he was bled to death. Back in those days, and even today, there were places all over the country that you could recognize quickly. It was a white pole with a red stripe around it. It was the barber.
I used to know if that's true. I don't remember anymore. I don't really care.
Barber was the guy who had the sharp razor to shave people, and who, if you had to take some blood out, he had the razor and he could take the blood out. You'd walk in the barber. What do you want today? Haircut, shave, or I want bled?
TC the Unbeliever says, which H.P. Lovecraft story? The Color Out of Space. That's why they called it that. It's actually a fairly direct translation of that story from the short story to a modern film set in modern day. And other than the change of setting to the modern day, it's actually a pretty faithful adaptation. About as faithful as you can be with like translating that story to film, because the story is a weird one to try and film. So I mean, there's You have to do a lot of change in like point of view characters and stuff like that. But overall, it actually follows the original plot pretty closely. There are some changes in the exact fates of family members and whatnot, but overall, yeah.
I got a
I
headache here.
can't
Believe me.
wait. I like what Cage said about Kent taking up being a screenwriter because I really want to see a movie that he would screenwrite. I would love to see whatever Battlefield Earth equivalent or whatever it is, right?
Is it going to all be weirdly
Like it
color
could be
graded
on
and Dutch
Best of the
angles?
Worst and it would get destroyed or something like that. Like this could be amazing stuff. Amazing, what is it, D quality movie or whatever they call it, B movies, I think. That's
Actually,
it.
Game of Thrones says if you can, you should watch it in black and white. I kind of wish that it was all in black and white, except for the bits where they have the color from out of space. And I regret that the main version of the movie that you can find is just black and white, because I thought it would be so much cooler if that were the case. Roylan Hutchins? I'm going to go with Hutchins for now. Roylan Hutchins for $2 says, Washington had a Masonic funeral. I don't know if that's true, but it wouldn't surprise me, because, I mean, why not, right? So thank you very much. But yeah, I have no reason to say that that's not true.
A little bit. That's what they did. That's why the barber pole still has the red stripe around it today, because he was the bloodletter. And the Bible says right there in Leviticus 17:11, the life of the flesh is in the blood. I tell people if the doctors would have just read that verse, George would still be alive today.
But Kent, you were also just advocating for bloodletting in other circumstances, so no, that wouldn't help. My goodness. I'm just going to take a drink for how stupid that is.
He'd still be alive today.
Caliban says there is an RPG based on Lovecraft books. Oh, there's more than one, man. I've played more than one.
Have I? I don't think so.
No, you've never played it. Oh, unless you've been, like,
I
sneaking
just like
around
the
when I don't know it.
Cthulhu because Metallica does a lot of that in their music.
Yeah. Well, as far as I know, I'm aware of every RPG you've played, and none of them were that one. But here we go.
Well, he would live longer, okay? Now, if you went scuba diving
Okay.
and you found a treasure chest full of gold coins,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked you the very simple question, when did the boat sink? You'd say, I don't know. Well, look at the
Probably
dates on the
Google it.
coins, right? If there's a coin in there from 1750,
Okay.
you ought to be able to calculate pretty quickly that the boat had to sink after 1750.
Or during 1750, but okay, yeah, that's true. We'll take a drink. That's roughly correct.
How many can figure that out with no help? Okay? It couldn't sink before that, right? You may find some older coins in the box, but that doesn't matter if you're trying to calculate when the boat sank.
Okay, but what if you're trying to calculate when it was built? Because remember, we're talking about the age of the Earth. When was the Earth, quote unquote, built? Not when was it destroyed, because it wasn't.
The limiting factor would be the youngest coin. And this is a good illustration to help people understand, when we're going to go into here in a minute here, how to prove the Earth is not billions of years old. Well, there are some limiting factors. There are some ways to test the age of the Earth that show billions of years. There's no question. There are some that do that.
Okay, well, now we know that for those things to come back with that, the Earth must be at least that old. And if we find younger features on the Earth, that's okay, because old objects can have new features. So, for instance, let's say you find a rock with a carving on it. Is the rock as old as the carving, or could the rock be older than the carving? Well, since you have to find a pre-existing rock in order to put a carving on it, the rock is older than the carving.
Oh.
So, the limiting factors are the oldest ones.
I have a problem with what you just said, because what you did is you used premises and then you used a conclusion and the logic flowed and followed and it was not just valid but also sound, and that's not what we do on this channel. We make invalid and unsound argument. Oh wait, no, I'm thinking of Kent's side.
Yeah, that's what Kent does.
I made a show.
Ah.
If you have 500 ways to tell how old this Earth is, and 20 of them give billions of years,
Mm-hmm.
and 400 of them give less than 100,000 years,
Mm-hmm.
those are the
That's
ones
how
you
it
got to worry about.
works.
Nope, you got to worry about the billions.
It's
'Cause-
more like almost everything gives old and then hardly anything
Right.
indicate otherwise, if anything.
It's like a better analogy would be, let's say you want to find out how old a castle is, right? And so you know that this castle was added to in various stages, and it's got like multiple layers of walls and whatnot. And so you check and you say, okay, I say that the castle was built when the first building that is currently part of the castle complex was built. So you had to find the oldest building. And the younger buildings don't limit that. Vandalia 1998 said, my milk expired January 31st, so the Earth is only a day old. Well, there you go, man. The Earth is only a day old.
I wish we had a Amazon wish list for Uncle Kent, because there's a book called Critical Thinking Skills for Dummies
Ooh.
that I think would be a pretty good $9 investment if we could get him to read it.
I'm not sure that he can read, because, okay.
That's true. We're not sure he can read. I forgot about that.
This is something where I'm not super supposed to reveal my sources, and it's not Cindy, so I'll say that. But there have been reports that virtually all of Kent's quote-unquote writing was actually done by other people in consultation with him, and that basically pretty much everything he's written, possibly even his dissertation, was essentially ghostwritten. And also, Kent Hovind, in his videos, his recent ones you can just watch, he has trouble reading anything that he didn't prepare himself as a slide. He stumbles over even easy words. There's good reason to think Kent Hovind might be functionally illiterate.
He might also have really bad eyesight and no glasses.
That could be. And also, he could just have a disability. Like, he might actually just be dyslexic. In which case, I'm not going to throw shade on him, but it also does mean that he's not likely to read any books that we're going to send him. So, yeah.
Right.
Here we go.
The young ones. If I wanted to calculate, when was this room built?
Mm-hmm.
I could look around and say, well, it has copper wiring built into the walls, so that would mean, probably built in the last 100 years, right?
No, it wouldn't mean that, Kent, because you can add wiring to older structures. Okay, spoiler alerts.
Did they not have
This isn't
copper
even a
100
spoiler
years ago?
Well, they didn't have wiring much more than a century ago, because people weren't wired for electricity in their homes that long ago. But here's the
Actually,
thing.
that's probably true. I don't know.
The house I grew up in was built about 250 or so years ago. You know what was in the walls? Bent?
Copper?
Yeah, copper wiring.
Magma? Oh.
So I'm going to take a drink for how stupid this is before we go a little bit into it.
Yeah,
Okay, so here's the thing. Old structures can have new features added, which is the whole point why finding these young things don't matter. If you want to find out when the house that I grew up in was built, you have to do things like check the age of the oldest timbers and do things like check with the records in the town that I grew up in to see, hey, when was the structure actually erected? And it turns out it was erected in late 1700s, like 1780 something or something like that, right? Okay, well, that's when it was built. And there are new features, like the toilets in that house. They're newer than the wiring is, because I watched some of them be installed as a kid, because we did renovations. So you can't just find the youngest thing in your house, like, what, like, are you going to base it on, like, well, there's a couch right there, and have a receipt that says I bought the couch in 2020, so that's how old my house is. None of that makes sense. You would have to prove the wires are original to the house in order to use that to date the house. So we'll keep going with Kent Hovind's complete inability to understand how you actually date things.
It has actually copper wiring in twisted.
Oh, London is only 10
metal
years old because it has PayPal.
Flexible metal.
Sounds about right.
Oh,
Yeah.
here's a fun thing. You know, it was actually demonstrated in court that the way that PayPal made money early on was by just closing people's accounts for no reason and pocketing the balance. Yeah.
I don't need to hear things like that.
Sorry.
That's going to stress me out more.
Cynically Skeptic sends a 1999 US super sticker with a thumbs up. Thank you so much, Cynically Skeptic. I really appreciate that. All right, here we go.
Cable. Oh, well, metal conduit. Well, then I could figure out when was that made, and I could go back and limit it. I could look at some of the fabrics in the carpet and say, oh, wow, this has...
People change their carpets all the time, Ken. Oh my God, I'm going to go crazy with this. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I'm taking a drink.
I think it's funny.
You can tell how old a house is by how old the carpet is. Okay, once again, guys, I grew up in a house that had carpet added to it. That carpet was added in the 90s. That doesn't change the fact that the house was built in like the late 1700s, the late 18th century.
This house that I'm in was built in sometime in the 1970s. I don't have any shag carpet in it, so
Okay,
I'm not saying there was some in the past, but why wouldn't there have been? Maybe
Evidence
there
and
wasn't.
Reasons was talking about the PayPal thing. I do want to point out that there was a big court case, and they got in a whole bunch of trouble, and now they are pretty closely scrutinized. And as far as I know, they are not currently doing that. But yeah, that was during the period when Elon Musk was directly in charge. There's a reason he got fired from that job twice. So, yeah, Elon Musk is a scumbag, and I don't care who knows that I think that. Just gonna put that out there. Elon Musk is the worst. I don't care if he shares cool memes.
He does share cool memes.
He does, but he's also a piece of crap.
Rayon, that wasn't developed till World War II, you know, so it's less than 60 years old. Through process of elimination, I probably could narrow it down to where we could get pretty close to when this building was built.
Kent, you could check when that bottle on your desk was bottled, and it's in the room, so maybe that'll tell you how old the room is. This is, like, you don't even have to start thinking about this.
Well,
oh my goodness.
The problem with Kent is that he usually doesn't start thinking. Maybe he'll just start thinking and then he immediately stops right afterwards because he figures like, oh, I got the answer. The very first thought I had. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, look, my normal analogy for this is like, oh, hey, I got a zit on my butt, and it was only there a week ago. I guess I'm a week old. That's not how anything works. Oh, and TC the Unbeliever says Elon Musk is a pretty bad idea, man, too. Yeah, all of his successful companies were founded and conceived of by other people, including PayPal. And Tesla.
He's good at becoming a CEO, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, well, he's good at throwing around a whole lot of money so he can buy himself.
He's good at talking to people that have a lot of money.
He's amazing at PR. I'll give him that. Anyway, here we go.
If you walk into a house and you find it has green shag carpeting, and green refrigerator and green stove and green sink, when was it built? 1970s, of course.
No, Kent. That's when it was decorated. That's when those fixtures were put in. I cannot believe how dumb this is. This is amazing to me. Like, I can't... It's hard for me to actually understand that he's doing that. Yeah,
and those would have been built...
But you can't base the interior decoration... You can't build... Sorry. I'm losing my ability to speak. This is so dumb.
You'd have to demonstrate that there is no renovation, which is ridiculous.
You can't use interior decoration to say when a house was built. Plus, here's another thing. Did you know that you can do a retro interior style? You could build a house here in the year of our Lord 2022 and put in green shag carpeting and a green refrigerator and green cabinets and all that stuff. You could do that. No one will stop you.
If you look, we're right there. You'll see a Dapper Dino blanket. That proves that this house was built 150 million years ago. Because that's how old that dinosaur is.
And that reminds me, by the way, guys, I do have a merch store. If you want Dapper Dino merch, it's in the description. There's mugs, t-shirts, baby onesies. I don't know. I don't think I did the underwear, but I think
why not?
I don't know. I just don't like. I think
it's what everyone wants.
Well, I think it was because like I didn't have a good repeating pattern, and so it was just gonna like weirdly wrap the large scale pictures that I was put on there onto the underwear, and I was like, I didn't like how it looked, so I just didn't do it. But I mean, look, email me if you really, really need Dapper Dino undies, and I'll think about that.
Pizza roll.
There you go.
All right, that's something.
Everybody had to have the green shag carpeting, you know. It just kind of tells the story of when it was built. Now, almost
so
all toilets,
amazing.
if you take the lid off the back of the toilet, there's a date stamped right on there. When was the toilet made? Often, real estate people use that all the time to tell when was this house built.
No, you can't do that, Kent.
I've never had a real estate agent do that to me in the two I've interacted with.
You know how real estate agents try to find out when houses were built? It's called records.
Yeah. They did have those printed out at this house when I looked at it the first time.
Oh, you mean
before I bought.
your realtor did
I
his or
still
her
have the
job?
binder. I still have the binder. They left it here. They're not taking that binder back.
So when they were giving you the documentation, they didn't just take a picture of the toilets?
I actually have the people who signed in for like an open house. I think I still have that sheet on there.
This is
Yeah.
I
I don't
honestly
know if that's cool or not, but
I cannot believe he's trying to make this argument. It's
ridiculous.
It's amazing. Like look, a couple episodes ago when we did like the National Socialist German Workers' Party was even worse because they were gay, which is just like that just made me angry. But this is as stupid as that was evil.
As that was offensive.
Yeah. Like I'm not offended by this, but it's just absolutely crazy that he thinks that this is a good argument.
Right.
All right, we're gonna keep going.
Well, you know what though? If you only ask 5-year-olds, because any 5-year-old would know, right? So if you're only asking 5-year-olds, they might not be able to think that through.
That's true. All right, here we go.
Maybe don't learn from 5-year-olds. Maybe learn from college professors or something like that, or your teacher, or.
Dr. Osiris is pointing out how, for no reason other than hype, Tesla is worth more than like all other top car manufacturers put together, even though they make far fewer cars and their income is far lower and their profits are far lower than those companies put together. It's all just hype. That's Elon Musk makes money by taking companies, pretending they're going to do things that they can't do, making promises that he won't deliver on, pumping up the stock value, and then when he feels like he has to, he gets out of there when the stock values are still high.
Doesn't he get a bunch of government grants too?
Oh yeah,
because he can convince Congress pretty easily. Mm-hmm. He's really good at that.
Yep. But like he's repeatedly defrauded investors. He repeatedly makes promises that not only will he not
hey, he's an ambitious man.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, sometimes optimistic timeline is just code for fraud. And I'm not saying that Elon Musk is a fraudster. I'm alleging that he's a fraudster.
I'm not making any such claims. The lid of the toilet back up, the backside.
But he does seem ambitious.
He'll have a date stamped right in there. Now, usually, the toilet was put in within a year of its manufacture, you would assume,
And never replaced, got it.
Right. Oh my goodness, I'm going to take a drink.
The toilet says 1955. Probably the house was built around 56 or 57.
No, you can put a toilet in a super old house, Kent. Like, does Kent think that Buckingham Palace just doesn't have toilets because it was built before toilets were invented? Does Kent legitimately think that?
I've had a lot of toilets that aren't very good, and the last place before I lived here that I rented, great toilet. And I remember the landlord telling me when I bought this house, I replaced the toilets with these better, low flush, never clogged toilets.
So,
and he did. I guess I didn't ask. Did you buy this house when it was built the same year? But no, he didn't.
So Evidence and Reason says, how do you guys find this stuff about Kent? I don't think I could invest time digging this stuff up. Okay, so the thing is,
we download the next episode.
Right. We're like something like 12 or 13 videos into his Creation Science Evangelism college course, quote unquote. But basically we just started with a few debates and we switched over to his seminars, they're famous anyway. And then I heard him mention this in some video that he did on his channel, which is the only reason I know that the CSE stuff even exists. So it's actually not that hard to find, but I did have to spend some time watching recent Kent Hovind, which is just the worst. Kent Hovind's new stuff is terrible. But actually, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to refresh my drink. You guys are going to get a treat because I have the updated clock that actually runs at the right speed because I don't even know. Before I did some math and like something didn't work out, even though the math, I double checked it and it seems like it should. So I now just don't really trust Blender's driver system as much as I used to. And so instead I just brute forced it with keyframes. So there you go. So yeah, here is the intermission and we'll be right back, hopefully in just a couple minutes. So
after these messages, we'll be right back.
Yeah. And we are back. And while we were gone, Bent Hovind, he made an interesting discovery that we're going to tell you about right after I read the super chat from Vandalia 1998, who says for $4.99 US, Godzilla warning, watching Kent will kill brain cells, and that even not including the drinking game. And I think that was actually an attempt to use the Godzilla emoji, which means I'm going to take a drink for it because I think it was the underscore at the beginning that made it not show up, but that's cool.
It counts. I'm counting it.
Mm-hmm. I
So,
took a drink.
after drinking 2 full glasses of flavored water in the first hour of Kent with Ben, when I used the restroom during the break, I did check the year my toilet was made. It's 2019. It has a QR code you can scan for replacement parts.
And when was the house built according to the records? that
1972 or 74 or something like that.
Weird.
Somewhere in the 70s. Maybe it was even 75. I don't know. Could be anything between 70 and 79.
That's so bizarre. So your house has had features added to it after it was built?
Yes.
Huh.
I don't think they used QR codes in the 70s
And so,
because they didn't exist.
Using the youngest feature of your house to put a limit on how old your house could be is incredibly stupid. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's smart. This house is no more than, 3 years old, for sure, right?
Goodness. All right, here we go.
There are ways you can narrow it down. I couldn't prove exactly when the room was built, except I happen to be here, so I know, okay? But without an eyewitness observer,
That's what the Hall of Records is for, Kent. Eyewitness observers had to file permits and paperwork and whatnot when they build buildings. That's why you check. It's a historical question.
you could just do process of elimination, narrow it down, to within the last 30 years. This was built.
You're just randomly guessing.
No, you couldn't.
You're virtually randomly guessing. It's a little more than random, but not much. It's illogically more than random.
This
doesn't mean it's more accurate.
This is exactly the same as saying that because Kent knows that he bought that little dinosaur on his desk in like 1996, and this film was done in 1997, well, the room couldn't be older than a year. I mean, it's got a year-old dinosaur toy in it.
So dumb.
Oh my goodness.
It's so dumb.
Okay, actually within the last 4 years. But if you find a fossil, you got the same problem. You find a dinosaur bone.
Okay.
This guy right, this is a copy of it. The real one's right over there in the case, straight across from me.
I really hope that Kent Hovind never actually owned a real dinosaur fossil, especially not one that large. To quote Indiana Jones, that belongs in a museum.
The real dinosaur bone, but John makes replicas of these in our fossil shop out back. That's a toe bone, one of the knuckle bones from a brachiosaurus. So I tell kids, when you find the dinosaur bone, you should notice 2 things about it right away. Number 1, it does not talk.
They already know that.
That's also a joke that didn't land, so we're going to take a drink for it.
Number 2,
I believe he actually says that to kids. I think he actually
Yeah, he probably
say
does.
that to kids.
But it's also, he told it with the cadence of a joke, so
I know. I don't know if the kids laugh when he says it to them, but no one did when he said it. No.
Right. Oh, Nebula says, my parents have a piano with a tuning date of 1914, therefore the piano must be older. Therefore their house is more than a century old? Yeah, exactly.
Oh, proof. That's science. Just accept it and don't actually think about it, because it might not make sense.
Yeah.
not have a date stamped on it. It does not say made by a dinosaur in 70 million BC in Taiwan. Okay, they don't say that.
That's true. So I guess I'll take a drink for him being correct.
How on earth could you tell the age of a fossil?
Oh, this is a good question. So let's get the actual answer, and then we'll see what Kent has to say. So the actual answer to how on earth could you tell the age of a fossil is, well, it depends on exactly where you're finding the fossil. So let's say, which does happen occasionally, you actually find it in an ash fall or a bed of tuff. Now, that doesn't always happen. Sometimes ash is too hot to really preserve much, but it does happen sometimes. And you can actually directly date the tuff in which the fossil is embedded using radiometric dating. But let's say you can't. So what you can do is, because volcanic events are relatively frequent, most strata that were laid down primarily by water do have bits of tuff or tuffaceous earth above and below them in various places, right? Where there was a volcano eruption or something like that. And so what you do is you date the lower stratum to get the oldest possible date, and the upper stratum to get the youngest possible date. And now you know that you're bracketed between those dates for when the actual fossil was laid down. Now, if you have a good sedimentation analysis, you can even do things like determine the approximate rate of sedimentation. So, for instance, finer grain sediments take longer to be deposited. Coarser grains tend to take more time to be deposited, things like that. That's a rule of thumb. You actually have to do real, actual geology to determine these things. So even if you have a fairly wide bedding, you can determine about how long during the process of that deposition that it was, which can help you narrow it down even further. Additionally, you can check other stratigraphic surveys from strata that you can correlate to the one you're looking at to also help you bracket in those dates, which is why fossils are always given a date range. This fossil was, this animal died, say, like Ken said, 70 million years ago, but it's going to be plus or minus a million or 500,000 years or something like that. That's how you date a fossil.
Yeah, you can do potassium-40
potassium,
radiometric dating, because
argon.
carbon-14 radiometric dating.
Yeah, that won't work.
It'll work for about 75,000 years-ish, according to this website. I've heard 20,000 somewhere in there.
Maximum.
But old stuff, I'm reading potassium-40. It has a half-life of... It says has a half-life of 1.25 billion years. So I don't know how.
Maybe check a different website with better English. But so that's how you date a fossil normally. Also, it helps if you ask it nicely to maybe go see a movie and get dinner or something. Show it a good time. That helps with dating fossils too.
0.251 times 10 to the 9 years. So yeah.
Here we go.
We have petrified stuff all over the museum. Petrified wood right here, petrified clams, petrified seashells. I'm
just going to point out, clams are basic. Clam shells are already petrified, basically, because, they're made of calcium carbonate, which is just limestone, basically. But whatever.
Petrified ammonites, I'm surrounded by stuff. Here's shark's teeth, petrified dinosaur bones. That whole wall is dinosaur bones over there.
Take care, Sal.
Bye, Sal.
Thanks for being here.
Yep, everyone say bye to Sal. He's Evidence and Reason. Sal is he's one of our favorite creationists.
Sal's my favorite YEC.
There you go.
Mine is Sal.
Well, I do talk to Cindy more often.
Well,
it's because Sal never
calls too much,
me.
But Sal's still my favorite. Well, that's true. Cindy and you talk on the phone, but
all right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
We're surrounded by stuff here that's petrified. Fossils. How old is it?
I mean, I can't tell you off the top of my head for any given fossil, Ken, but it's determinable.
Well, none of them have a date on them.
Mm-hmm. Take a drink for being right.
None of them talk.
Mm-hmm.
So we can put our interpretation on there if we'd like, but that's what it would be. It would be our interpretation.
No, you can measure it.
False.
This is a matter of measuring, how tall is this table? Now, it requires more specialized equipment than the equipment that you use for how tall is this table, but that doesn't mean you're not measuring it. You just measure it. Until you actually find a real problem with radiometric dating and not just some creationist intentionally misused a radiometric dating technique to get a date he knew would be flawed from the outset because he misused the technique, that proves that people who use it correctly are wrong. Until you do more than that, which is the best creationists have ever done, it's still a valid dating technique, and you're just directly measuring it. By the way, I want to say, looks like we got about 15 or 16 people who haven't hit like, so please do help me out by hitting like. I do appreciate all the likes. Here we go.
Cool.
When did they form? Really, if you want to test the age of a fossil or the age of anything, the ideal way to find out would be to find the guy who made it.
Well, since we don't have any Tyrannosauruses around, or Brachiosauruses, or whatever other dinosaurs, or Ammonites, we're going to have trouble with that, so...
Talk to the guy who built it. He'll know. If you can find the guy who built the house, like my grandfather up in Wisconsin lived at 22nd.
He's just going to say that God told us in the Bible, and if he does, I'm taking a drink.
And Cass
and
across
it's like the home records, though. You just go do that. You don't look at the toilet. So I'm instead going to look at the toilet of the rock, and that's how I'm going to see how old that rock is.
Ole Espinus was his name, from Norway. He built all kinds of houses across La Crosse, Wisconsin. He was a carpenter. So if we want to find out when a house was built, call Ole up. Hey, Ole, when did you build this house over here? So, that was built in... he would know. He did it.
For $4.99, Vandelli 1998 says, if the fossils have a date on them, it might be fake. And if it talks to you, please get help. Yes, good point.
Okay? The ideal person to tell you the age of something is the one who did it.
Okay. Well, that's not an option for fossils. So let's just hear
I'm-
Kent say that the Bible
I'm
is going
just
to tell
kind
us.
of I'm just kind of upset because La Crosse, Wisconsin is not that large of a town, and that's where my dad grew up.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I have a decent amount of family that's still in that town. So I really hope there were no Hovind and Hovind dash no relation actual interactions there.
There might have been. I mean, he gets around. He's been to a lot of places.
Yeah.
Well, the Bible says that God created
Yeah.
the heaven
Take a
and
drink
the
for
earth.
correct.
By the way,
predictions.
Genesis
This is
1:1,
God.
properly translated, is the heaven singular.
Oh, we've checked on this a million times. Look, we've checked.
I mentioned this earlier in this episode.
Well, let's. You know what? Here's what we're gonna do. We're
Heaven
gonna
versus heavens. Stretch,
let's see. We're gonna go to.
Stretching.
Okay.
By the
so-
way, if in the beginning God created the rock that we're using radiometric dating for, we would still know the age by the radiometric dating, and that would still be the age of it. So, thanks, Kent, for not proving anything, even if you're right.
All right, so I'm going to switch our scene here real quick, and we're going to take a look at the biblical text. So give me a second while I go to make sure that that doesn't end up just being terrible. All right, so yeah, that'll be fine. Okay, so guys, here's a Bible thing here. So we're going to find the Hebrew. So I have to scroll through all these lists of languages. And also, English, my goodness, it has by far the most translations because it's just a big business, and I kind of hate it. Here we go. Just let's go. Okay. Why is this being weird? Just go Genesis 1:1. I don't want a book list. Whatever. Okay. Wait, that's not it. Why is this being stupid? Do I have my Hebrew Bible handy? I think I do. Hold on. Give me a second, because I don't know why. It's being stupid. Oh, that's the Greek New Testament. Turn it.
All right, so a horse walks into a bar, and the bartender says, "Why the long face?" And then the horse is actually taken away because it doesn't belong in the bar. It's for humans to drink
Whatever.
alcohol, not horses. Yeah, I told a joke. Yay.
Okay,
No.
there you go. There it is.
Yay.
I just picked the wrong master, or the wrong Hebrew text, I guess. All right, so let's see. Bereshit bara Elohim. Okay, here we go. So Hashmayim, the heavens. There's ha, the. I'll scroll. I'll zoom in so we can see it. Right. Whoops. There we go. That's the. Okay. And this little dot in the middle of the sheen here indicates that the sound is doubled because you double the first sound after the definite article in Hebrew. Then shmayim, this eem here, that's just the plural ending for masculine nouns. It says the heavens. Well, okay. But you know what? Some people might say, well, let's check the Septuagint, because the Septuagint technically has a longer manuscript tradition than the Masoretic texts, which is true. And, it was created by, believing Jews who were, big fans of this. So let's see if we can find, let's see. We're just going to search for it. It's Genesis 1:1 Septuagint, because I don't know how to find it here. Genesis 1:1, oops, 1:1 LXX, which is the abbreviation for the Septuagint. It just means 70 in Latin, or in Roman numerals. So here we go. Okay, so we're going to zoom in here so you guys can see it. En arche, in the beginning, or at the start. Epoisin, he created. Otheos, that's the subject there because it's a nominative case. Ton uranon, accusative plural. Oh, man. Ke tinechin, that's accusative singular. So what do you know? The correct translation is exactly what all those Bibles say. It's plural. You know how I know? Because I checked the actual languages. And yeah, Shanti points out it's plural. Yeah,
Dapper can read good and can do other things good too.
because I was
He
helped
doesn't
out
need to go
by
to a
Zoolander.
center. Yeah, he doesn't need. He could teach at the center.
Yeah, like it's really not that hard. Ton uranon. There you go. Problem
I
solved.
can't do it, but
So there we go, guys. Kent is just wrong. Heavens is in fact the correct translation.
okay.
Many new versions say heavens.
For good reason. I'm just taking take a drink.
I knew you mean
Wrong.
older than the King
The
James.
heaven. The word heaven means expanded place.
Does
That's
it?
probably not true, but
Well, now we
you
have
know-
a
you
new
know what?
thing to check on.
it could be one definition of a
All right,
several definitions, so it doesn't matter.
Heaven.
I mean, you can check it if you want.
etymology. We're gonna check this out. So, from Old English, helfen. Okay, let's see etymology online. So let's see. Helfen, home of God. Earlier, the visible sky, firmament, probably from Proto-Germanic Hibin, dissimulation of Himin, also source of Low German Heben, Old Norse Himin, perhaps literally meaning a covering. So from Proto-Indo-European root chem to cover. So there we go. There's the actual etymology. It doesn't mean a stretched out place. Yeah. Now maybe he's arguing that that's what it means in Hebrew or Greek, but look, man, that's not what he said. So I'm just going to go with what he actually said, which again, not the case. And here's the thing, right? It doesn't take that much to get enough Hebrew or Greek under your belt to know whether or not the words are plural. Like, it's not that tough. That's like maybe a few weeks of study. Maybe. Like, you can do this yourself. Get yourself like a Greek lexicon and a grammar and a Hebrew lexicon and a grammar and start working on it. Maybe get a lesson book and start doing the lessons. And in a few months, you'll be able to get to the point where you can tell if a word is plural or not. It's not hard. I mean, this isn't a language where plurals are not necessarily marked like Tagalog or Klingon or something, right? So, yeah. Anyway, now that we've just put on screen the actual original language, as well as our earliest known translation into another language that we have a reliable manuscript tradition for, yeah.
Apparently God made the earth and then one big expanded place that goes out, who knows how far? Nobody knows how far heaven goes. Later he divides it up into 3 slices.
Oh.
And after this, it is almost always called heavens.
So why was it heavens in the original language and the Septuagint, Kent? Riddle me this.
Plural. But in Genesis 1:1, it should be heaven singular. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
Because the King James has it that way, despite the fact that the original language, as well as our oldest translation that we have a reliable manuscript history for, both put it in plural. And by the way, I checked the Septuagint primarily because there are Christian bodies out there who prefer it to the Masoretic text. Most Protestants do not. But
Check both.
yeah,
right?
that's why I checked both, right? If they both
They
agree,
both say the same thing.
Right.
That Kent's line.
right? If both the
Shocker.
Masoretic and the Septuagint agree with each other and not with Kent, I'm going to take the consensus of those two texts, and I'm going to reject Kent.
I think I remember. I don't know if it was this particular thing, but I remember when I was a kid, and I believe Kent when he would say things like this, and I'd say, "I don't know if he's telling the truth. I don't know Hebrew, right? You know, how can I know? If I could know Hebrew, I would know if he was lying or not." And I never learned Hebrew, so I still don't know.
Look, my Hebrew is really bad, but I can tell when a word is plural when it ends in a plural ending in Hebrew. It's not that hard.
I need to do some Duolingo and learn enough Hebrew to be able to read Genesis 1:1.
Well,
And then I'll satisfy my 10-year-old, curiosity from when I was a kid.
God is claiming he did it, which means he did or he didn't.
I mean,
Which means that it has to be a certain age? Or is that
Well, that's the
completely
thing, right?
unrelated?
yeah, because the main point of of Genesis is a polemic against like Mesopotamian mythology, saying that our God, the God of the Hebrews, is actually the creator of the universe, not your like various Mesopotamian gods like Enlil and Enki or whatever. And look, if you're a member of an Abraham religion, then I mean, you don't have to drop the idea that God created the world just because he did it billions of years ago.
If he did, then he wouldn't know how old it is, right? And here we have in Colossians chapter 1,
I
verse
think that's probably true. If there is a God and God created the earth and the heavens and all that, I think that God would probably know how long ago from now that was.
Yeah. You
That
know what?
seems like a reasonable.
Do we take a drink for him being right?
I'll try. I don't know if that's.
I mean, I'm thirsty, so I'm going to go for it.
But
If a God exists, I have no doubt that he would know how old the world is.
that he created.
For by him, talking about Jesus, quite obviously, were all things created that are in heaven.
I was actually about to contest that maybe it wasn't actually obviously Jesus, but given this Colossians 1:16, that's a reasonable interpretation.
And that are in earth. So now Jesus is claiming he did it. So is this a conflict? No, that's one of dozens of pairs of verses you can put together that proves conclusively Jesus is God Almighty in the flesh.
Well, that proves that the author of Colossians thought that. But if you accept Colossians as inspired scripture, then yes, that is good reason to say that. But like, we should point out that you don't actually have to accept Colossians. There are a whole bunch
I don't know what that has to do with the age of the earth.
Right.
Is that possible?
There are these things called other Abrahamic religions that accept that God created the world and don't accept that Jesus is God. Christianity is not the one and only Abrahamic religion, believe it or not. There's other groups like, most notably, Jews and Muslims, but also Rastafarians and Baha'i, who tend not to agree on Jesus being God. So there's even groups within the big tent umbrella of Christianity, like the Jehovah's Witnesses, who don't really believe that Jesus was God. So, you know.
Jesus allowed himself to be worshipped. Didn't he?
I don't care about your theological
only worship
musings,
the Lord thy
Kent.
God, him only, nobody else. You don't worship anybody else. Why did you?
Well,
Jesus said, "I am the Alpha."
What do you mean by that?
It does. I mean, look.
If someone's gonna worship someone else, are you gonna stop them or allow it? Like, I don't know what that means. Was Jesus supposed to stop people from worshiping him if he didn't want them to?
Possibly. So in the Bible, various angels do stop people from trying to worship them. They do object to this. So you could. Oh, and by the way, Vishanti points out in because she didn't do it in the chat, but she sent me a DM that I can't quickly check. But anyway, that the Hebrew for Shemayim does mean expanded place. So Kent would be right if he were talking about Hebrew, but he didn't say that the Hebrew word, he just said heaven, which I'm going to count as him still being wrong, because here's the thing, right? If you mean the Hebrew word for heaven means expanded place, you say, the Hebrew word for heaven means expanded place. You don't say heaven means expanded place. Because, spoiler alerts, the etymology of Hebrew words and English words for the same thing aren't always the same. Which is just, crazy, right? How could that be?
It's very crazy.
All languages should have the same etymological history for all words. That's just how it is.
And the Omega. In the Old Testament, God says, "I am the Alpha and the Omega." Well, correct. Okay. I can show you the Trinity in the Bible, but I can't
don't
explain
care,
it.
Kent.
You just got to see it.
What does that have to do with the fossil?
Nothing. Look,
6,000 years old.
I am not
I'm
here.
asking you. I'm asking Ken.
I am not here to have debates about the Trinity in the New
It does
Testament.
not mean expanded place, says Vishanti.
Oh wait, does not? Oh goodness. Sorry, I'm trying to read a whole bunch of different things. Dual singular of from a root meaning lofty, the sky. Okay, so he was wrong even about the Hebrew. There you go.
He was just wrong all around, which...
Sorry, we're at a point now where me reading DMs while also trying to pay attention to chat and also Kent, it's getting to be a lot.
It's been a day.
Yeah, boy has it. It's been a pretty rough day. I'm just gonna say that.
It's been a long road getting from
there to here.
There to here, the morning to now.
Goodness.
The Bible does teach the Trinity. I cannot explain it. Okay.
Look, I'll just say this. I've seen good faith efforts to say that the New Testament both does and doesn't teach the Trinity. I'm not here to tell you which one is true and which one isn't. I've even seen people try to use the Old Testament to come up with Trinitarian doctrines. Those I'm a little bit more skeptical of, but like, whatever. I don't care. Be a Trinitarian. Don't get the science wrong.
I can give you some illustrations, but every illustration breaks down at some point, okay? For instance, I'm only one person. An egg, for instance, is a in the pulp of the apple, etc. You know, how can one guy wrote into our program at truthradio.com or drdino.com, the program we have every day, 4:30 to 6, you know.
I don't understand how the age of the earth relates to the Trinity, honestly, but okay.
What was the question, Jonathan? They were asking about
What was the question?
something about...
This is like me in a job interview. I start talking about one thing and then another thing. Like, well, what's the question? No, I'm just kidding. I don't actually do well in job interviews.
Can you explain? When Jesus was here, it was true. He limited himself to time. He's all places at all time. How can he be here listening to me?
Oh my goodness, Kent.
Bad movie, but you ought to watch it.
I don't even care what movie it was.
He's hearing all these prayers. They're all
do.
mad because the lottery is divided by a million winners.
I don't need to know.
But here we have Jesus claiming that he is God Almighty. He says, Colossians, the
my
first
goodness.
created being. It's Bible. It'll say, by him were all other things created. Just by adding that word other. First one to find that. Acts chapter 20, I believe it's verse 28. Right. Acts 20:28. Go ahead, Kevin. God,
Okay.
which he hath God.
Yeah, I mean,
I am not here for Kent's defense of the Trinity. My guess is it's going to be just as bad as his defense of anything else. And yeah, there are better defenses of the Trinity that you could, if you want to see that.
I am a Trinitarian, so I don't want to watch Kent talk about it because he'll probably convince me that I shouldn't be by arguing in favor of it, and I don't want to deal with that. I have too much going on in my life. I don't want to have to
Look, there are
evaluate that again. It doesn't matter.
There are
that
much smarter
much.
people than Kent who have made much better defenses of the Trinity.
I know, but I just think if I happen to agree with Kent on something religiously, then I hear him argue why he believes that, it's gonna make me think that I was wrong.
Yeah.
What Jehovah's
I
Witnesses
don't
did
wanna
is
do
pretty
that.
slick right there.
Uh-oh.
They words. Like a magician, you know. It was with God. And they have to change it. Matthew 19:4.
Okay, I'm also going to point out Kent Hovind is talking about the Jehovah's Witnesses weird translation, the New World Translation or something like that. It is really crappy, and that's based on a consensus of both believing and non-believing Bible scholars. Like, everyone knows that the New World Translation from the Jehovah's Witnesses is just a pile of crap. It's worthless.
I didn't know that, but
Yeah. It is intentionally mistranslated. That's true.
Female. Claiming that the creation of Adam and Eve, you got to say that these days out there. We'll talk about
Oh, hey, I'm just going to take a drink because I skipped over Kent being a homophobe. So, congratulations, everybody. I know, because I recognize his talking points here.
stupid. Anyway, here we have Jesus. Wherefore, as by well, obviously this Romans 3 and 5 and other people.
Come
we
on,
have death
Kent.
because evolves. What must happen to the rest
He
of
said
them?
evolve.
Death
Okay.
is a
Yeah, we're going to
wonderful
go back a
thing,
little bit.
because that's how you get ahead.
Okay.
One animal evolves a little better than the rest.
Okay.
Gets a new improved gene.
Okay.
What must happen?
populations evolve.
Well, new improved allele of a gene, although you can get novel genes, so I mean, it does happen.
I mean, there are more genes
W.S.
now than there were.
Wordsman says, can you point me to a source about the New World Translation being garbage? I mean, like, not off the top of my head, but if you look for, like, biblical scholars and you try to find, like, places where they've talked about the New World Translation, I mean, basically, if you Google, like, New World Translation and you go to the websites that talk about it that say, or the articles or the books, drink from Mothra, and you check out the scholars who aren't Jehovah's Witnesses, which, by the way, the Jehovah's Witnesses basically have no scholars because they discourage people from going to school. I mean, it's all over the place. But, like, which place would I go to first? I don't know off the top of my head. Sorry. It's just that, it's not exactly controversial that the New World Translation is kind of garbage. So that's what I would suggest. Just check basically any scholar who isn't a Jehovah's Witness. Yeah.
To the rest of them in order for this process to work?
They have to reproduce fewer... Well, they have to reproduce successfully fewer times for this to work. That's all that has to happen. But Kent, I'm going to predict, is going to say, they all have to die, which isn't wrong. which is wrong because they don't have to die. Because evolution is about differential reproductive success. So, for instance, let's say that you and a friend you're going to see who does better in terms of quote unquote evolution. Well, let's say you have 10 grandchildren who then themselves go on to have children, and your friend only has 2. Well, guess what? Your friend didn't just, get annihilated or something. I mean, eventually you're both going to die, but that's just everything, right? Your friend didn't die faster or anything because you had more grandkids who reproduced. But you're still selected for. So everybody dies, but you don't have to die in any special way just for your genes to dominate. You just have to have differential reproductive success. I can say it.
I'm just gonna ahead of time, just in case, I'm gonna pull up Hebrews chapter 9, and maybe not, depending on what Kent says, I might read one of the verses.
Now, Hebrews chapter 9 was written by the Hebrews, just like Timothy was written by Timothy, according to Kent, right?
Every Hebrew who's ever lived has written Hebrews.
Okay. Sorry, I just had to throw that in there because Kent has
who
said,
will live. Every Hebrew who ever has and will live.
Yeah, I just had to throw that in because Kent repeatedly says that Timothy wrote the books of Timothy in the Bible, even though they both start as Paul addressing Timothy in a letter, which is, I mean, it says who wrote it, or at least it says who claims to have wrote it right there at the beginning of the book, and it's not Timothy. So keep going.
They all got to die.
No, take a drink.
Because if you got a herd of cows and one of them gets a new improved gene and becomes the super cow,
okay,
if the rest of them don't die, that new improved gene is going to be swamped back into the population and
nope. So there, we'll let him finish the sentence.
Nobody's going to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so that can happen in populations of sufficient size, where just stochastic aspects of population genetics can mean that even beneficial new alleles tend not to persist because they tend to end up just not reproducing at a faster rate as a result of what are more or less random things. However, when populations are smaller, then the actual selective advantage of new alleles can overcome the tendency of new alleles to get eliminated through the result of just genetic drift, which is one of the reasons why we actually see evolution happening fastest in smaller isolated populations. That's why when people do experiments in evolution, they tend to grab a smaller population. It's also why in observed instances of significant phenotypic change in wild populations, we tend to see it most with new, relatively isolated populations, like a new population of animals on a new island, or they've managed to get into a relatively isolated microbiome in, say, a mountain chain or something. Like there's a relatively isolated valley. Now that they're in the new microbiome, the smaller population starts to evolve more quickly. So Kent is like half right about some of it. But anyway.
Yeah, Robert Madewell actually did make me laugh out loud.
Oh, what did he say?
A guy named Act wrote Acts.
That's really good.
And Genesis sung Genesis. Yeah. Good job, Icarus.
Nice. I'll take a drink for those. Those are good. Yeah, that was really good.
You guys are on point.
Goop23 says he left to go talk to his parents. What did I come back to? I mean, Kent being an idiot about evolution, even though this video is supposed to be about the age of the Earth.
I don't know why he still has that fossil or replica next to him.
Yeah, that...
He stopped talking about that a long time ago. He never made a point on it.
Also, okay, wait, didn't he say it was a Brachiosaurus digit?
Yeah, it's like a knuckle, but up the toe.
Okay, because here's the thing. Brachiosaurus are relatively derived macronarians, and okay, so maybe it's a Pez digit. That could be. All right, because I was going to say that they don't tend to have Manus phalanges, but like they have Pez phalanges, so I was just going off on
he called it a knuckle, but I think he said of the toe or the foot or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if it's the Pez, then that works.
I can't remember exactly what he had phrased it.
What he said was vague enough that I'm just going to assume that he means Pez and not Manus phalange, because I mean Brachiosaurus. I'm correct.
That's what he implied. Yeah.
I don't think they actually had Manus phalange. Well, let's check though, because maybe I'm wrong. Okay, so technically they did actually have the... Is that what I'm looking at? Give me a second. Yeah, okay, so it looks like they did actually have some very, very reduced manus phalanges. So I guess they were a little bit less derived in terms of morphology than I thought. Anyway, yeah, the really derived macronarians, they basically just walked on their metacarpals and didn't actually have phalanges in their forelimbs. Anyway, except for the thumb. They did have thumb phalanges.
Is actually a religion of death.
Right, so it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this the judgment. Don't really care about after this the judgment for the purposes of this, but yeah, that's the KJV, Hebrews 9, verse 27, and as it is appointed unto men once to die. Christianity, the religion of death.
Right?
Not evolution, where nothing has to die for evolution to take place.
It just happens
Things
to.
do die, but they don't have to. So
Yeah.
if evolution is a religion of death, and Kent knows that people and animals all die, why does he not believe in evolution?
I don't know. Also, I
Is
want
it
to point
because
out.
he doesn't even know how dumb he's being right now?
Also, the central event in Christianity involves the death of a particular man. Like,
Death and resurrection, but death is necessary.
death is a big part of that.
You can't have it. It wouldn't have worked without the death.
Right.
Right. The
So-
sins wouldn't have been paid for. That's what Christianity teaches, in my understanding.
The Venerable Beat says that Brachiosaurus is outside of Titanosauria, which is true, which is where I arbitrarily put derived macronarians. I mean, I guess that's fair. Look, derived is one of those relative terms, and if you want to reserve the word derived for Titanosauria, I'm not going to stop you. But it's possible that I just thought Brachiosaurus is more derived than I thought. Yeah. Look, I'm not an expert on macronarians. By the way, macronarians are a group of sauropods, for those of you who don't know. They're the ones who have really big nares or nasal openings in their skulls. There you go. A lot of the more famous ones are macronarians, like Brachiosaurus and Giraffatitan and Titanosaurus and whatnot. Whereas things like Apatosaurus and Brontosaurus and Diplodocus are not macronarians.
Heard of some of those.
There you go.
I'd probably recognize drawings of some of them, but I wouldn't name which ones are which. Because I wouldn't be able to. Well, some of them I would, but.
All right, here we go.
Charles Darwin knew, death is the hero to the plot. Now, the Bible teaches
Where did he say that? That's another one of those citation needed sort of things there, Kent. I'm going to need a citation on that one.
death came because of man's sin. 1 Corinthians 15.
Yeah, I don't care
Since
about
so
1
in
Corinthians 16.
Christ by man, talking about obviously in the first half of the verse.
Look, we all know that Kent thinks that death didn't occur until the fall of humans, even though that doesn't make any sense because lots of things would have had to die in order to feed the people and animals who were eating even just the plants. And also, Kent likes to think that like the insects don't count for some reason
Because he doesn't.
because they don't have nostrils. And yes, the Venerable Beat says Dreadnoughtus is a macronarian. That's correct because it's a titanosaur. And it is a great name. Dreadnoughtus is a great name. Guys, distracting me with dinosaur talk, which, to be fair, I brought upon myself.
So
Wait, unless the Ornithoscelida hypothesis is correct, where Ornithischia and theropods make a group that is exclusive of sauropoda, because all cladistic definitions of dinosauria would then exclude sauropods from being dinosaurs, technically, even though people are arguing that maybe we should change the definition of dinosauria then. Which I say, no. You don't get to do that just for funsies because you like sauropods. Anyway, that's a complete rant that almost certainly made sense to maybe 2 people in this chat. So here we go.
Adam
Makes sense to
was the one who brought death into the world. And 1 Corinthians 15:45,
Oh, I still don't
Adam
care.
was mother of all the first man, Eve's the mother of all living.
Yeah.
It could
all
not be
living. That means all living. So everyone, everything in the universe, God included,
So I'm
was birthed by Eve.
I'm looking at
That's what that means when you're literal, Kent.
and so that dog was given birth to by Eve. Sorry, I almost said Mary. Okay, all right. Yeah, when you're literal like that, right?
Yeah.
Weird.
Or maybe that's not what it meant.
Maybe. Here we go.
more clear. And when you read Genesis chapters 1, 2, 3, you see the very same thing. I mean, it's just quite obvious. This is what the book's teaching.
And yet, Christians throughout the ages have not always agreed with you, Kent. And look, here's the thing, right? I remember Todd Wood. He's a young Earth creationist, but he's one of the, I'd say he's one of the most honest ones. For instance, he says things like, yeah, there's a lot of evidence for evolution, and we can't pretend that there isn't. I just don't happen to believe it. And a lot of that is because of my religious convictions, which, you know what? Okay. But anyway, he was talking about how he was in at a conference about different views on creation, and there were theistic evolutionists and old Earth creationists and progressive creationists and young Earth creationists and whatnot. And one of the things that he said was that, like, look, I'm just trying to take the Bible seriously. And the response he got from all the people who had different, opinions to him was like, yeah, me too. I'm also trying to take the Bible seriously. It's not like you have a monopoly on that because you're a young Earth creationist. And one of the things he said was that he realized that, yeah, people who disagree with me aren't necessarily not taking the Bible seriously. You can take the Bible seriously and come to conclusions that aren't young Earth creationism. And
there's a difference between seriously and literally in every single word, right?
also, I just want to say Darth Horror just came in and said, yo, that thumbnail is disturbing. I know. I actually kind of love the thumbnail for this video. It was very easy to make, and I think it was very effective. Because
I had nothing to do with this video title. I couldn't come up with any ideas.
Yeah,
a lot of times these titles are my ideas. A lot of times.
That's true. You come up with.
So because I get asked, hey, you know what we want to do?
You probably come up with somewhere around half of them.
Yeah, and I know other people have contributed ideas in the past too, but this one not. He's like, what do you think we should do? I have no idea.
Yeah.
So.
All right, here we go.
Genesis 5 tells us, Adam lived 130 years and begat a son and called his name Seth.
Okay, so remember, that means according to Kent, Adam literally was a literal person, and he literally lived 130 years. Which also means that Eve was literally the mother of all living. Because remember, we're going to be consistent, right? We have to take the literal meaning of all these verses. We can't just toss in the possibility that maybe some of the language is figurative. We can't do that.
Now, we won't go into, at this time, why they lived...
Yeah, this refrigerator here is like a 3/4 size. It was gifted to me by the greatest bass player in Copper Magma history, Sam. So we have 2 refrigerators. Only 1 more to go.
There you go.
So long. We'll get into that later in Seminar Part 2. Why did they live to be 900 years old?
Wait, Seminar Part 2? Are we still in his first seminar? Is the CSE class going to go to like 1801 class 12 or something? Are we going to be here for the rest of eternity?
I will have white hair by the time we're done, white beard by the time we're done with Ben.
Man,
we'll end at number like, I don't know, 1,000 or something.
Kent with Ben 1K. Goodness.
One atheist
you guys
was reading
think we've been doing this for a couple years? We're just getting started.
Look, we're not that far from having to use the letter C in our titles instead of like L and X. So
Genesis, and it says, Adam lived, 130 years and begat a son, called his name Seth. And he lived after Seth, 800 years and begat sons and daughters. And then it says, and he died. Okay. You read a few verses later, it says, Seth, blah, 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 and he died.
That must mean he believed in evolution because he died.
Remember, yeah, because it's evolution that's a religion of death.
That must have been his religion.
Christianity doesn't have death in it, apparently. Which, that's not fair, but...
No Christians have ever died.
That seems incorrect.
It's not true.
Enos, blah, 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 and he died. And he died. And he died. It goes all through the whole chapter,
Yeah,
and he died. And he died. The atheists set the Bible down and said, man, they all died. And it's going to happen to me, too.
You don't have to be an atheist to know you're going to die.
Is this a story that didn't happen? I'm going to take a drink because I have no idea what's happening.
That's a good question.
I better get saved. Got saved reading the genealogies in Genesis chapter 5.
Yeah, no, I'm taking a drink. I do not think that any atheist read the genealogy in Genesis 5 and thought, oh, gee, I never realized that I'm mortal. That didn't happen, Kent. I don't believe you. I'm taking a drink. Like, look, atheists aren't unaware of their own mortality, right? Goodness.
And he died.
You know how you can tell if someone's an atheist or not? Ask them if they think they're going to live forever. And if they say yes, then they're an atheist.
Yeah, apparently. Goodness.
Wait, that's not how you define atheism?
No,
what?
Turns out.
He died. Yeah,
that's dumber than saying rocks are atheists.
Oh, yeah.
It's dumber than that.
You are going to die, okay? Me too.
Yeah, we know.
I tell people I'm going to try to make that the last thing I do, but it's going to happen, okay?
That was a joke. Didn't land.
Same, right?
Didn't land.
Then it says Seth lived 105.
But I have heard similar jokes that I've laughed at before from my aunt. So I do tend to actually have a soft spot for, I'm going to live to be 100 or die trying because of that.
That's better though. That's a better joke.
Well, it is better, but also it's a better joke because I remember my aunt telling me when I was younger. It's a nice memory.
By the way, yes, Kent looks very young in this video because this is pre-prison Kent.
I think this
like
was
early
2006 or
something
like that.
Yeah.
If it's the same.
Yeah. This is
That's
shortly
the year I
before
remember.
prison Kent, but it is pre-prison Kent. That's a word I can
Yeah,
say.
this is like season 2 of The Office was out, I think, when this was being recorded.
That makes me feel so damn old.
I know.
All right, here we go.
Years and begat Enos. Enos lived 90 years and names missing in the genealogies. There are 3 names that are gone in one of the genealogies that are listed in the other 2.
Okay.
What?
Well,
okay.
Why? Why is Canaan, for instance, missing after Shem? And later we'll see that. We'll cover that in seminar part 7, which will be about 4 years from now, at the rate we're going in the class. But,
exactly. It'll be about 4 years.
Seriously.
But I can't wait for that because I want to know the answer.
Canaan, and why is his name missing?
Now you guys all have
There are
to
5
do
or 6
that.
possible reasons why the names would be missing or scrambled. The Hebrew genealogy thinking is different than ours, okay? In their mind, a grandson is a son. A son-in-law is a son. Saul said to David, you know, who are you? Where are you, my son? Well, he married his...
Oh, okay. So when it becomes inconvenient for Kent to take the Bible literally because that would create obvious contradictions, all of a sudden, oh, well, look, I mean, you got to put some room in here for, you know, figurative language. Son doesn't have to mean son, which, look, here's the thing. I agree with Kent. Son doesn't have to actually mean literally your male child that you produced out of your own gametes, right? But the thing is, okay, Kent, but look, man, this section isn't noticeably different from the section in Genesis where you're like, no, day has to mean day. And these years have to mean years. Like, why? Yeah, just why. It doesn't have to. But actually, that's probably a good place to wrap it up here because we've been going for almost 2 hours.
Yeah, but I just want to say years,
go ahead.
like, obviously, not just that, but they clearly hadn't figured out years yet because I don't think that people were living 10 times longer than we're living today. And Berlin said it took 130 years for Adam to figure out sex. Like, really? Does that seem...
It's really complicated, man.
Sure, but, like, my goodness, man, if you're the last man on Earth now, well, I'm the only man on Earth, and wait 130 years, and you'll finally cave. Like, is that what happened? I don't...
Eve was just a really big prude.
Right? Like, I don't... Well, no one's here to do the ceremony. We can't get married, right? So, we can't... I don't know, man. Anyway, yeah, we can wrap up.
All right, so, Bent, got anything you want to plug? Like maybe something happening tomorrow?
Yeah, there's something happening tomorrow.
What is it?
Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
On Cheshire Vic's channel.
Mm-hmm. And who's going to be there?
And I'm going to be there. You're going to be there. T. Lane's going to be there. Erica's the funniest person on Earth, maybe, when she's in character. And Luke, who's not that far behind. Very funny. And Maddie. And is that everyone?
It's Maddie from Science Side Up, but Chesh will be there too.
From Science Side Up. Chesh will be there too. It is on our channel. She'll
Yeah.
be there too. And it's going to be, I want to say tons of fun, but I don't know. Maybe it'd only be like hundreds of pounds or
That's still a
kilograms
lot.
of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So come check out Guns, Magic, and Steel. I'm going to be a dwarf. Or I'm a dwarf artificer. Bent here is a halfling druid. We've got Erica playing an imp rogue. Cheshire Vic is playing a different rogue. She is a
Cat person.
tabaxi. She's a tabaxi rogue. Yeah, cat person. Luke, Erica's fiance, is a Goliath fighter. T.D. Lane is a kobold barbarian. We have it's a fun party. Maddie is our GM. So yeah, that's a lot of fun. This Thursday will be the final episode of the current Andrew Snelling saga. I don't know what to call it. And then Saturday will be hopefully what is going to be the last Kent Hovind dissertation reading. I'm hoping to finish it on Saturday. Then Tuesday should be Eric with Erica. Thursday, I'm actually gonna try and get a speculative evolution video out for Thursday on the 10th. I can't promise it, so like if it doesn't happen, it'll just be the start of a new series because I've got a bunch of stuff in backup. Thanks, dogs. Then on the 12th, that is going to be the announcement for the final winners for the Cambrian Bunny Awards. So if you haven't voted, on my channel, there is a video for the nominations where myself, Jordan from Reasons to Doubt, and Dr. Dan from the channel Creation Myths got together, and we nominated creationists for several categories, including worst behaved, worst use of the English language, worst argument, as well as best overall. And so you can vote for whom you would like to see win. And yeah, you can go ahead and do that. And also feel free to like create a trillion YouTube accounts just to like, you know, flood votes. Like, I don't care, right? It's not a serious thing. So cheat as much as you want. I don't care. And Nebulan says, Kobold Barbarian. Awesome. It is awesome. I mean, seriously, Guns, Magic, and Steel is a fun time. We have a lot of fun doing it. And I think it deserves more viewers than it gets. So please do check it out. I mean, it's got some of your favorite YouTubers on there. If you're a fan of my channel, you've got to be a fan of Erica's channel at least. So, yeah, check it out. All right. Well, I'm going to say goodbye, everybody. Thank you for coming. This has been... Honestly, I laughed a lot more at this episode than I thought I would because you can tell how old a house is by how old the toilet in it is something that I would use to make fun of Kent. I would use that as an example of how stupid it is that Kent thinks that this is the case.
I can't believe I have a QR code for replacement toilet parts I could scan on my barely 3-year-old or whatever toilet in my, 50-year-old, 40-year-old house. I don't know what years, how long ago the 70s were.
Yeah.
50 years, I think.
Oh, by the way, Icarus says, why do kobolds speak Draconic? Was there some kind of coevolution? So technically, kobolds are actually dragonkin. So, I mean, do with that what you will, right? The real question is, why do lizard folks speak Draconic? Because they're not dragonkin. But yeah, thanks for coming, everybody. Kent Hovind is beyond parody. Unfortunately, I do not have the February credits ready because it's February 1st, and I always wait until at least the 2nd to start that, and that's just because like sometimes there are declines in Patreon and whatnot, and I want to get people a chance to fix that before I skip over them in the credits, only for them to fix it later on in the month. So we are still using...
Let's take a couple days to make sometimes, and I think you tweeted like spelling mistakes are mistakes, and they're not intentional.
Yeah, actually, that reminds me. This is just a general message. If I get your name wrong, either in spelling or pronunciation, in the credit scenes, please let me know, and I will try to fix it. But do remember that there is a delay. So, yeah. Anyway, here is the end credits, and we're getting out of here. Bye, everybody. I just wanted to mention 525, Ian Chen, John Ackerman, Landon Knoll, Lingwei, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Bede, and Patrick Dennis. My channel members and patrons help keep the lights on here at Casa Dino, and they also help make this channel possible, because without them, you'd be lucky to get 1 video a week out of me, never mind 3. If you'd like to support either as a patron or a channel member, there are links below. Also, if a monthly pledge or even an annual pledge isn't right for you, there are other ways you can support the channel. There's a merch store and an Amazon wishlist, and of course, if none of that's right for you, just hitting like, sharing this video, and commenting really helps out a lot. Thank you.